with international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. Gaza must never again be allowed to serve as a platform for terrorism, including by Hamas. Settler violence and settlement expansion in the West Bank are unacceptable and must cease immediately. Last but not least, the preservation and the respect of the status quo of the holy sites in East Jerusalem remains of paramount importance. Imagine a Lebanon which is fully relieved of the destabilizing threat posed by Hezbollah and other non-state armed actors, with the authority of its state restored across its entire territory. At the same time, Israel must refrain from further military operations and territorial incursions into Lebanese territory, which risk escalating tensions and undermining prospects for a durable political solution. The full implementation of the cessation of hostilities arrangements, the continuation of bilateral talks, and the strengthening of the LAF and other state institutions is essential. In Syria, a path towards stability, security, and prosperity can only emerge through a genuinely inclusive political process in line with Resolution 2254. Our vision involves a Syria which is united and sovereign, whose territorial integrity is intact, a country where all Syrians, regardless of their ethnic or religious background, can participate in shaping their future. In conclusion, Mr. President, mediation and dialogue remain the only pathways for achieving durable political solutions. Our collective efforts must be guided by a shared and unwavering vision of a Middle East where sovereign states coexist peacefully, terrorist organizations no longer undermine security and stability, disputes are resolved through diplomacy rather than force, and future generations can live in security, dignity, and prosperity. The Security Council, but also the wider international community, share a common responsibility in advancing dialogue, reinforcing mediation efforts, and shaping a future defined by peace, stability, and cooperation. And let's be clear, all these necessary efforts will only bear fruits when based on international law, the UN Charter, and the relevant Security Council resolutions that continue to be our only compass in this journey through rough waters. Time is of essence. I thank you.
Gracias.
I thank you, representative of Greece. I now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
I thank the Secretary General for his briefing. To begin, the United States condemns any anti-Semitic rhetoric and any comments that reduce the atrocities of the Holocaust. Colleagues, these conflicts in the Middle East demand real solutions and political capital, not recycled failed approaches. The United States, under President Trump, has brought a new approach to the region, both in our own efforts and in the Security Council. It is this action-based approach that has achieved real results. The lesson is clear. Debates, discussions, and mediation can lead to success, provided they are tied to concrete political arrangements and sustained international commitment. In Gaza, this Council moved beyond rhetoric and endorsed a comprehensive political framework aimed at ending the conflict with its historic Resolution 2803, endorsing President Trump's comprehensive peace plan. That framework has facilitated humanitarian assistance, secured the release of all hostages held by Hamas and their remains, and established a realistic pathway towards long-term stability through the Board of Peace and the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. In Lebanon, President Trump's leadership brokered historic talks between the government of Israel and Lebanon. Durable peace requires that sovereign governments, not terrorist proxies, exercise control over their territory. Israel and Lebanon announced a ceasefire on June 3rd. We look forward to that agreement's full implementation and continued negotiations toward a more comprehensive peace agreement. On Syria, following President Trump's historic decision to lift U.S. sanctions on Syria, this council first delisted Syrian presidents al-Shura and then HTSs from the 1267 ISIL and al-Qaeda sanctions regime. Our bold actions recognize Syria's transition to a new chapter. We have bolstered the Syrian government's efforts to reintegrate with the international community, counter terrorism and drug trafficking, eliminate the remnants of chemical weapons, and secure much-needed foreign humanitarian aid and development assistance for the benefit of the Syrian people. The United States is committed to lasting peace in Syria, both internally and with its neighbors. Special Presidential Envoy for Iraq and Syria, Tom Barrack, continues to support engagement among the parties and between Syria and Israel. And on Iran, the international community has demonstrated that diplomacy and accountability go hand in hand. The Security Council's sanctions, architecture, and snapback mechanism were created precisely because dialogue without consequences failed to prevent destabilizing behavior. Effective diplomacy requires leverage, credibility, and enforcement. We must recognize a simple truth. Throughout the region, many conflicts are fueled by the malign behavior of a single actor, the Islamic Republic of Iran, with political and financial support from certain members of this council. Iran is holding the world's economy hostage by unlawfully attempting to restrict freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. It continues to back the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and militias in Iraq. Iran's nuclear program has threatened peace and security for years. The United States once again condemns in the strongest terms possible that Iran's outrageous and unacceptable attacks against its neighboring countries must stop. Russia and China have continued to shield Iran and prevent this council from fulfilling its founding purpose of maintaining international peace and security, vetoing a draft resolution in April that would have authorized action to secure transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Across the region, the challenge before this council is not choosing between dialogue and action. It is ensuring that dialogue produces action. The United States remains committed to practical diplomacy that reduces conflict, protects civilians, strengthens legitimate institutions, and advances a more stable and peaceful Middle East. We urge all member states to join us in working towards that goal. Thank you.
Gracias.
I thank the representative of the United States. As a brief reply, by way of brief reply, no one here is seeking to diminish, and this is a statement I'm making as the President of the Republic of Colombia, not as President of the Security Council. No, as things stand, no one is attempting to diminish the atrocities of the Holocaust. That's exactly why I talked about the important role played by the United States, the European Union, or the European nations, and the role played by millions of Europeans. All of these parties together destroyed Nazism. Don't take words out of my mouth. What I'm doing is ensuring that the Second World War, the Holocaust, which gave rise to this institution to guard against those horrors, I'm trying to ensure that there is no now Holocaust of the people of the Third World. That's what I'm warning against, and that's what I'm trying to prevent. Now, my second point, of course, we champion the dialogue between civilizations. I applauded the efforts of President Trump in Gaza. Finally. But what's happening is we're seeing a failure. And I hope you take note of what I'm about to say. Dialogue between civilizations does not involve eliminating a civilization. There is no such thing as malign civilizations. wicked civilizations, the discussion between good and evil that I translate into terms of life energies or dark energies waging a struggle against life, wars being waged against our humanity and beyond. What I'm saying is civilizations all need to come together and engage in dialogue. There can be no chosen people of God. That's a monotheistic tenet. Rather, all of humankind are chosen by God. That discussion's been held since time immemorial, and we've had giants discussing different tenets. And this belief that there's a chosen people is what's perhaps brought us to war, but we need to sit down. There's no such thing, like I said, as a wicked civilization. Everyone is part of the people of God. We need to sit down and talk together. There's this nuclear risk that's been hovering over us for decades. For decades, or decades ago in this organization, steps were taken to gradually eliminate nuclear weapons, and that's still a process going on. Those that have, there's not really a discussion to be had about who should have nuclear weapons and who shouldn't. No one should have them. What's happening is those with money are subjugating those that don't in a non-democratic way with their nuclear weapons. And this whole thesis can be applied to what's happening in the Middle East today. And we need negotiations. If you demand that one nation doesn't have nuclear weapons, well, that's all well and good, but no one should have nuclear weapons. It shouldn't be a prohibition placed on one nation. This construction of two states, Israel and a free Palestine, they should be sovereign states, both of them, and that their civilizations should be respected, and the Palestinian civilization shouldn't be rooted out to build peace. The Israeli people also built a civilization, and both civilizations are crucial and should be protected. And that's why I believe that in Latin America we don't use missiles, we don't attack boats as happened in Colombia. Caracas, of course, has been the victim of missiles. In fact, I think the first that was dropped on us was in Caracas. We're not talking about missiles. We should talk about dialogue. Civilizations should talk to each other and should not be exterminated or annihilated. And that's what I talked about personally with Donald Trump, a pact for freedom, life and democracy. Freedom is the watchword that should govern and does govern all American peoples. There was my reply by way of aside. I now continue with the speakers list and give the floor to the representative of Bahrain. Bahrain. I don't think anyone should be impeded, incidentally, from taking the floor. Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. No one should be led to a state of gridlock because of a war in the Gulf. Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, because that causes violence between the peoples. Everyone should be free. Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I'm honored to welcome His Excellency President Gustavo Petro, President of the Friendly Republic of Colombia. We extend our sincere thanks to Colombia for convening this high-level open debate at a time of great sensitivity and complexity. We underscore the importance of mediation and dialogue for lasting peace. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to His Excellency the Secretary General, and I thank him for his valuable briefing. Mr. President, the Kingdom of Bahrain, under the leadership of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of the Kingdom of Bahrain, may God protect him, and guided by His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, may God protect him, The Kingdom of Bahrain reaffirms its firm commitment to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Foremost among them is the peaceful settlement of disputes, respect for the sovereignty of states, and the promotion of political dialogue as the optimal path to the achievement of security, stability, and sustainable development regionally and internationally. This also includes support for mediation efforts and confidence building among conflicting parties through the promotion of dialogue and diplomatic solutions. Issues in the Middle East, especially the Palestinian cause, remain at the forefront of the Security Council's priorities. The region faces complex and interlinked challenges that require strengthening preventive mediation mechanisms and multilateral diplomacy in order to address the root causes of conflict, prevent their escalation, and end conflict to achieve sustainable peace. The Kingdom of Bahrain reaffirms its unwavering support for the legitimate rights of the brotherly Palestinian people, particularly the right to self-determination and the right to establish their independent sovereign state on the borders of 4 June 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital, in accordance with the Arab Peace Initiative and relevant international resolutions. The Kingdom of Bahrain renews its affirmation of the legal centrality of UN Resolution 2803, adopted in 2025, in seeking to achieve peace in the Gaza Strip. We also note the esteemed participation of His Majesty the King, may God protect him, in the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., under the chairmanship of His Excellency U.S. President Donald Trump. This participation reflects the Kingdom of Bahrain's steadfast commitment to dialogue and preventive diplomacy. It embodies the comprehensive royal vision of coexistence and tolerance, from which emerged the initiatives of the 33rd Arab Summit under His Majesty's presidency to support the right of the brotherly Palestinian people to establish their independent state, alongside the Kingdom's continued provision of educational and medical support to those affected. Mr. President, the Kingdom of Bahrain and the members of the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Hashemite Kingdom continue to be the subject of unlawful attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which uses ballistic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles in highly premeditated operations that are highly accurate, targeting infrastructure, vital facilities, residential areas, diplomatic premises, airports, energy facilities, factories, and universities. These attacks have caused major losses in life and in material property, reflecting the aggressive Iranian intentions towards our peaceful nations. However, the efficiency and readiness of the armed forces and air defense systems have allowed us to confront these attacks with a high level of professionalism and has contributed to neutralizing the threat and mitigating its effect and protecting lives, facilities, and vital capacities. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 2817, submitted by the Kingdom of Bahrain and co-sponsored by 136 member states, considered the most widely supported resolution, the most widely sponsored resolution in the Security Council, and the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution of the 25th of March 2026, which was adopted unanimously with the sponsorship of 115 member states, reflect a firm international position condemning these unjustified attacks and emphasizing the necessity of protecting civilians, civilian infrastructure, and ensuring the freedom of navigation. The consequences of Iranian attacks and practices extend beyond the borders of the targeted states to affect the security and stability of the entire region. They impact international security, energy markets, the global economy, freedom of international navigation, and supply chains. This is a dangerous precedent and a blatant violation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. In this context, and in light of the importance of mediation and dialogue in de-escalation and in creating conditions conducive to political solutions, the Kingdom of Bahrain expresses its appreciation for the efforts of the Brotherly Islamic Republic of Pakistan to reach a peace agreement that ends the war in the region and reopens the Strait of Hormuz to international navigation. The Kingdom of Bahrain calls for continuing this vital process in a manner that would ensure that all core issues are addressed. Achieving regional security requires a coordinated collective effort to establish peace in Gaza, in Yemen, in the Sudan, in Libya, and Lebanon, and to support the paths of stability and development in Syria and in Iraq. This requires a comprehensive approach in dealing with pivotal issues. Foremost among them is the nuclear program and Iran's missile capabilities, and to put an end to the support given to armed militias in Arab states, thus providing our peoples with a genuine opportunity for constructive coexistence. In this regard, the Kingdom of Bahrain commends the intensive efforts undertaken by the United States of America within the framework of mediation and diplomatic initiatives that aim at stabilizing the situation and preventing the expansion of conflict in the Lebanese Republic. We affirm our support for the negotiations ongoing between the Lebanese Republic and the State of Israel. We express our hope that it would achieve tangible results that contribute towards enhancing security and stability and towards respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon. In closing, we wish to reaffirm that the safety of international navigation through the Strait of Hormuz is not an isolated regional issue. Rather, it is a binding collective responsibility and a fundamental pillar of stability in regional trade and the security of energy, food, and medicine. Keeping this vital passage open and secure is a legal obligation mandated by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and resolutions of the Security Council. It remains a key safeguard for protecting global economy from shocks. I thank you all for your kind attention, and peace and God's blessings be upon you.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, distinguished representative of Bahrain. You are one of the elected members of the council. I don't know if there are any left to take the floor. Yes, now I give the floor to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But before I do that, actually, I would briefly wish to touch on words from some words that were spoken earlier. In the story of the Bible, here I'm talking about the as the representative of Colombia. Now, Sem appeared in the Bible and was a haven for all of the people in the peoples in the Middle East, almost all of them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. I'd like you to correct me if I do need to be corrected. The the Persian civilization was in that region. It was given a haven by Sem, as were the Arab people, including the Palestinians. The Jewish people also enjoyed that haven. That is the Jewish people that lived in Judea and spoke Aramaic. Of course, there was Jesus also, and he enjoyed that haven. So they're all Semitic. And so when I talk about putting an end to war or genocide in Gaza, they're all Semites. As we've requested as a republic, we've asked for those responsible to be tried in international bodies before international courts, and that act was not anti-Semitic. We're defending Gaza, the Palestinian people, their freedom. That's not anti-Semitic. That has to be corrected. There's an international treaty that misuses the term Semite, Semitic, Jews, Muslims, people of other beliefs. There's the Zoroastrians also, they're all Semitic peoples. That needs to be understood. Now, I can give the floor to the representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. My delegation pays its respectful homage to His Excellency, Mr. Gustavo Petro, President of the Republic of Colombia, and expresses his gratitude to him for the honor he has kindly bestowed on the Council by enhancing today's deliberations with his presence and by assuming the presidency of our debate. The Democratic Republic of the Congo thanks the Sister Republic of Colombia for organizing this open debate, which underscores the promotion of political solutions in the Middle East. My delegation values the benefits of such an initiative. It provides the Council with a relevant framework for reflection with a view to consolidating our collective efforts to achieve lasting peace in this strategic region of the world. The presence this morning with us of the Secretary General and his briefing just now also testified to his determination to work tirelessly for peace and security in the world. Mr. President, the evolution of the security and humanitarian situation in the Middle East remains a source of concern for my country, in addition to posing a serious threat to regional stability and international peace and security. The violence in the region is a daily reminder of the considerable human cost that can be generated by the absence of a lasting political settlement. Civilian populations continue to pay a heavy price, while the repercussions of these crises are felt well beyond their immediate scope through, in particular, the various disruptions within supply chains, energy markets, and food security. These are the issues that directly affect many states, including those on the African continent, including the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Mr. President, it is precisely in this context that lasting political solutions based on inclusive dialogue, mediation, and preventive diplomacy take on their full importance. Political solutions remain the only credible path to lasting peace, where military responses fail to resolve crises deeply rooted in complex, historic, political and social dynamics. And in this regard, we commend the efforts of the Secretary General, his special envoys, and regional organizations, as well as partner states, engaged in the search for peaceful solutions to conflicts in the region. The Democratic Republic of the Congo recalls that the ultimate objective of any political resolution and mediation remains the preservation of human lives and the restoration of conditions conducive to peaceful coexistence. Indeed, the protection of civilians must remain at the heart of any international response. We therefore strongly condemn attacks on civilian populations and critical infrastructure, as well as obstructions to humanitarian access. We further emphasize that it's imperative to ensure the safety and security of humanitarian relief and medical personnel in accordance with the principles of international humanitarian law, while mobilizing the necessary resources to meet growing humanitarian needs. Mr. President, the African experience teaches us quite clearly that inclusive, context-sensitive, nationally owned, and youth-oriented mediation processes are essential to achieving lasting peace. These processes must, in addition, be shored up by lasting ceasefires supported by clear political commitments, international guarantees, and credible follow-up mechanisms. In this context, we call on the Security Council to first strengthen the coherence and complementarity amongst existing mediation initiatives, including the efforts of the United Nations, regional organization and states' efforts. Secondly, to promote inclusive dialogues fully involving women, the youth and civil society. Third, to ensure the effective implementation of the mechanisms under Chapter 6 of the United Nations Charter in accordance with Resolution 2788 of the Council. And finally, to help mitigate the impacts of conflict on global food security, supply chains, and the freedom of navigation. The Democratic Republic of the Congo insists on the need to learn from the lessons of the past in order to strengthen mediation approaches that are more flexible, inclusive, and better adapted to historical and cultural realities specific to each context. And in conclusion, my country reaffirms its commitment to multilateralism and calls for a renewed commitment to dialogue and mediation. It is our collective responsibility to advance credible and lasting political solutions in the Middle East in the interests of international peace and security. I thank you.
Bien, gracias.
I warmly thank the representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We now move to a second phase of our discussions. We move to non-members of the Council that wish to take the floor. So with that, I give the floor. We've talked about you. I give the floor to Her Excellency Miss Emma Higgins, Minister of State for Disability. She is at the meeting and she has the floor.
Mr. President, I've come here today to address the serious and the grave situation across the Middle East. However, given that it has been raised here in this chamber, the UN Security Council chamber, I will also address the situation in Belfast. On behalf of the Government of Ireland, I utterly condemn the absolutely shocking attack on a young man in Belfast on Monday. My thoughts are with him, his family and his wider community. I also utterly condemn the violence that followed on the streets in Belfast, the unacceptable behaviour, the criminal behaviour and the vigilante behaviour. Mr. President, one of the lessons that we have learned from the Northern Ireland peace process, which we worked on in collaboration with the UK and with the support of the United States, is the importance of calm political leadership and the importance of using our words responsibly. It is incumbent on all of us here to be mindful of that and to be mindful of our words and the impact they have. And it's incumbent on all of us to unite in defence of human dignity and the rule of law. Turning to the topic of today's debate, Ireland aligns with the statement of the European Union and the statement delivered by Kuwait on behalf of members of the core group of shared commitments on UNRWA. Mr. President, as entrenched conflicts in the Middle East region endure, new fronts emerge, we must urgently advance efforts that address the root cause of these conflicts. The rules-based international order, the multilateral system with the UN Charter at its heart, and the international human rights system are our greatest assets in addressing the drivers of conflict and achieving and sustaining peace. We acknowledge the vital role played by mediators, played by regional actors and international partners who work to create space for dialogue, for de-escalation, for sustainable peace. Mr. President, we remain deeply concerned about the dire situation in Palestine. As we meet here today, Palestinians are enduring unconscionable suffering. We have seen the destruction of homes, the destruction of hospitals, the destruction of lives. Humanitarian access continues to be obstructed in Gaza. The Palestinian economy continues to be stifled. Tax revenues continue to be withheld from the Palestinian Authority. And we call on Israel to immediately remove restrictions on aid access and to facilitate essential supplies and services unimpeded and at scale across the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, we see its territorial integrity being eroded by ever-increasing settlement expansion. And regrettably, these are the direct consequences of decisions by the current Israeli government. The exponential increase in settler violence against Palestinians, which continues in an atmosphere of impunity, is deeply disturbing. Accountability for settler violence, including fatal violence, is gravely deficient. Over 96% of incidents of settler violence never lead to prosecution. That's according to the human rights organisation Yesh Din. In Gaza, we remain ready to work with the US and other partners on the implementation of the comprehensive peace plan in accordance with the UN Security Council Resolution 2803 and other relevant resolutions. Since the ceasefire was announced in October 2025, Israeli forces have continued to expand their control of Palestinian territory in Gaza. That was not part of the plan. It is important that any new government instructions in Gaza, including the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, are transitional and have clear linkages with the Palestinian Authority, maintaining the connection between Gaza and the West Bank. Ireland's long-standing position is that the EU-Israel Association Agreement should be suspended. It has been demonstrated here at the UN that there is wide support for a peace plan for Gaza. There is also clear support for the two-state solution, notably as demonstrated in the New York Declaration and at the meeting of the Global Alliance for the Two-State Solution. Why? Because for decades we have known that the two-state solution offers the only viable path to ensure lasting peace and security for both Israelis and Palestinians. We remain committed to supporting this objective, as set out in numerous resolutions of the Council. Mr. President, the ongoing conflict in Lebanon is setting back hard-won progress. Ireland has condemned Hezbollah's attacks on Israel and Israel's disproportionate response. Both must stop. The intensity of Israeli attacks in Lebanon since the ceasefire puts any prospect of a sustainable and a meaningful peace with Lebanon in jeopardy. In the interest of enduring peace and security, including its own, we call on Israel to withdraw from Lebanon. We grieve the death and the injury of UNIFIL peacekeepers, and we condemn all attacks against UNIFIL personnel. Such attacks are unacceptable, and we call for accountability. We renew our condolences to Indonesia, to France and to Serbia. And we support a continued peacekeeping presence in Lebanon post-UNIFIL, as proposed by the UN Secretary-General in his recent letter. Turning to the crisis in the Gulf, the recent resumption of conflict between Iran and Israel is deeply concerning. And we hope that dialogue and diplomacy can lead to a negotiated outcome that will bring to an end the conflict in the Gulf, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping, and to address the range of regional security issues. But above all else, civilians must be protected. We urge all sides to exercise maximum constraint. We urge those with influence to use it constructively and to support diplomatic efforts underway to reach a lasting outcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Bien. Gracias.
Thank you to the representative of Ireland. We now continue with, do excuse my pronunciation, we continue with Her Excellency Ms. Uti Holopainen, the Undersecretary of State for Finland.
President, we thank the Colombian Presidency for convening this important debate. The need for dialogue and mediation in the Middle East is urgent. Conflicts in the Middle East have caused immeasurable suffering to millions. Innocent civilians continue to bear the brunt of violence, evident in the ongoing crisis in the occupied Palestinian territory, Lebanon and Yemen, among others. The ceasefire agreement brokered by the United States between Lebanon and Israel gives renewed hope for lasting peace and security. We commend the United States' role in this regard and call for the direct negotiations to continue. We urge all parties to exercise maximum restraint, fully respect the ceasefire, avoid escalation and ensure the protection of civilians. Hezbollah must halt its attacks and Israel must respect Lebanon's sovereignty. We all know how peace can be fragile. International law, including the UN Charter and international humanitarian law, is the true foundation for lasting peace. And yet, the United Nations itself is targeted in multiple ways, also in the Middle East. Recently, we mourned the death of the 7th UNIFIL peacekeeper in Lebanon this spring due to mortar fire. Our thoughts are with his family, friends, and the entire UNIFIL community. Attacks on UN peacekeepers are serious violations of international humanitarian law. We must ensure the safety and security of UN personnel at all times. President, Your Excellencies, amid these challenges, we reaffirm our commitment to advancing a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on the two-state solution. Achieving this requires genuine dialogue, mutual recognition, and the political will to find solutions. The New York Declaration provides a stepping stone for initiating this much-needed dialogue. We encourage the Security Council to endorse it and support efforts aimed at facilitating peace talks. President, Finland has consistently advocated for inclusive dialogue that encompasses diverse voices from the region and from the local level. We need sustainable solutions that reflect the aspirations and needs of whole communities affected by the conflicts. In conclusion, let us remain steadfast in our pursuit of peace. Dialogue is vital for transforming the current landscape of conflict into one of hope and cooperation. Together, we can build a future where all people in the Middle East can thrive in safety and dignity. I thank you.
Gracias, señor.
I thank the representative of Finland. We now continue with our speakers list with Mr. Kyung-Choo Lee, Special Representative for Middle East Peace of the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. We greatly appreciate the initiative by the Colombian Presidency of the Security Council in organizing this most timely debate. The recent situation in the Middle East, marked by armed conflict and military tension, has had far-reaching ramifications that extend well beyond the region to impact the entire world. It is all the more worrying that the most vulnerable links in the global chain of relations are being hit the hardest. Furthermore, we must confront the newly emerging reality of the dynamics that the digital-based advanced economies are neither self-reliant nor immune to supply disruptions of the traditional foundational sectors of the global economy, such as petroleum and shipping. These developments remind us of the indispensable value of the principle of the Pacific settlement of disputes as stipulated in Chapter 6 of the UN Charter and reaffirmed by relevant UN Security Council resolutions, most recently Resolution 2788 of July last year. And perhaps they have not been utilized as fully as they should have been, which can be largely explained by the geopolitical challenges of unprecedented intensity in recent years. Focusing on the Middle East, the Security Council has been able to deliver such significant results as Resolution 2803 on Gaza and Resolution 2817 on the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, even in the midst of the challenging atmosphere. Although not without imperfections, these texts essentially serve as authoritative rules and norms by which each party is expected to be bound. And it is meaningful that they are also the culmination of active mediation efforts by key countries concerned. Prioritizing civilian protection is critical to prevent escalating conflicts. In this regard, the government of the Republic of Korea expresses its deep concern, particularly over the civilian casualties caused by the recent conflict in the Middle East, and reiterate our calls for strict compliance with international law, including international humanitarian law and human rights law. Moreover, given the potential risk of food shortages caused by conflict-related trade disruptions, we emphasize the need to maintain freedom of navigation and stable supply chains. Recognizing the international community shares the same concerns, we underscore the need for continued messaging within the UN framework, as it reflects the collective will of member states. It should also be noted that mediation and dialogue, while essential, work best when a firm and united Security Council serves as a backstop, ready to act if the need arises. Although member states may have different visions and approaches to peace in the Middle East, we share the ultimate goal of sustainable peace. Considering that lasting peace eventually advances our respective national peace and security, we should engage constructively in efforts to identify the best solutions and facilitate their implementation. Despite sharing the same goal, the fundamental reason we repeatedly face difficulties in resolving conflicts is a lack of trust. In this regard, I would like to draw your attention to the SHINE initiative, which stands for Stability, Harmony, Innovation, Network, and Education. Last November, the Korean government announced this comprehensive vision for engagement with the Middle East, aimed at building trust and contributing for lasting peace and shared prosperity across the region. The core message of the SHINE initiative is simple. It calls on countries to build trust by invigorating exchanges and dialogue in order to harmoniously pursue stability. Mr. President, no doubt the United Nations plays an irreplaceable role in international peace and security efforts. We also acknowledge the critical work of the Secretary General in bringing conflicts to the attention of the Security Council, appointing special envoys for specific issues, and expressing the UN's positions to the international community. The valuable endeavors of the UN and the Secretary General in this regard deserve full support from all member states. Thank you.
Gracias.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea. We now give the floor to the representative of Saudi Arabia.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
I thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to deliver the statement on behalf of the Arab Group. At the outset, we would like to welcome you, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Colombia, and as you preside over our meeting today. And we thank the Republic of Colombia for organizing this important session at a highly sensitive time for the Middle East region, a region which continues to face intertwined security, political, and humanitarian challenges that underscore the urgent need to strengthen the role of mediation, dialogue, and preventive diplomacy in maintaining international peace and security. The Arab Group affirms its firm commitment to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations and to the fundamental principles of the international order, foremost amongst which are respect for the sovereignty of states and their territorial integrity, non-interference in their internal affairs, and the peaceful settlement of disputes, and refraining from the threat or use of force. Allow me to mention the following points. First, our Arab region has recently witnessed a dangerous escalation and hostile acts that have threatened regional security and stability, including Iranian attacks and assaults that have targeted a number of the Gulf Arab states and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, which is a violation of the principles of good neighborliness, international law, and the Charter of the United Nations. The Arab Group reaffirms its rejection of any acts whose effect would be to undermine the security of states, threaten their stability, or expose their peoples and capabilities to danger. The Arab Group also emphasizes the importance of protecting vital civilian infrastructure and ensuring the security of international maritime routes and the freedom of navigation and global trade. This includes the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and other strategic waterways in the region, given their vital importance to the global economy, energy security, and international supply chains. Second, the Arab Group commends the international efforts aimed at reviving the political process and achieving peace. We stress the importance of building upon the international momentum embodied in Security Council Resolution 2817, which was co-sponsored and supported by 136 states. This resolution is a clear indication of the international will that supports political solutions and the peaceful settlement of disputes in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions. Here, the Arab group welcomes the ongoing diplomatic efforts that are aimed at reducing tensions in the region and in a way that would contribute to strengthening regional security and stability. The Arab group values the efforts undertaken by the Islamic Republic of Pakistan in supporting dialogue and encouraging diplomatic solutions. Third, the Arab group affirms that the Palestinian cause will remain the central issue of the Arab world and that achieving a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in the Middle East remains contingent upon ending the Israeli occupation and enabling the Palestinian people to exercise their inalienable right to self-determination and to establish their independent, sovereign state on the lines of 4 June 1967, with East Jerusalem as their capital in accordance with international legitimacy resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative. The Arab group rejects all policies aimed at altering the demographic composition and character of the occupied Palestinian territories that have been occupied since 1967, including, among other things, the construction and expansion of settlements, the forced displacement of Palestinian civilians, which is a clear violation of Security Council resolutions, including Resolution 2334. We warn of the continued attacks on the legal and historic status quo in Jerusalem, particularly with regard to the Blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque and Al-Haram Al-Sharif. In Gaza, the Arab group affirms that the expanding Israeli military control and the ongoing attacks and the deliberate restrictions on humanitarian access have all created a grave and intolerable humanitarian emergency. Civilians continue to suffer from the policies that deprive them of protection and basic services and the most basic necessities of life. In this regard, we stress the need to fully respect the principles reflected in Resolution 2803, including respect for the ceasefire, humanitarian access, non-occupation, non-annexation, and the non-displacement of the Palestinian people. We note that the ceasefire agreement that was achieved thanks to the intensive mediation efforts made by the Arab Republic of Egypt, the State of Qatar, and the United States of America, and the Republic of Turkey. This ceasefire agreement demonstrates the importance of mediation efforts in strengthening political solutions in the Middle East and mediation for peace. Fourth, the ongoing and prolonged crises in the Arab region confirm that the challenges facing the region cannot be addressed separately or through military solutions. Rather, addressing them requires a coordinated collective effort that is based on dialogue, mediation, respect for international law, and addressing the root causes of conflict. The Arab group condemns the continued Israeli aggression against the sisterly Republic of Lebanon. We reiterate our complete rejection of any targeting of Lebanon's sovereignty and army. We express our sincere condolences and sympathy to the victims and their families and to the government and people of brotherly Lebanon following the death of Lebanese army officers while carrying out their national duty. The Arab group renews its absolute rejection of the targeting of a temporary position belonging to the UNIFIL in southern Lebanon, which resulted in the death of one soldier and the injury of others. The Arab group calls for intensifying international efforts aimed at ending conflict, protecting civilians, ensuring the unobstructed delivery of humanitarian aid, and supporting comprehensive political processes that lead to peace, stability, and sustainable development for the peoples of the region. We support the mediation efforts undertaken by the United States of America to de-escalate, and we welcome the initiative that was launched by the President of Lebanon and the negotiations that aim to put an end to hostilities and an end to the Israeli occupation. The Arab group condemns in the strongest of terms all Israeli incursions and repeated attacks against the territories of the Syrian Arab Republic. We consider them a flagrant violation of Syrian sovereignty and territorial integrity. They run counter to the Charter of the United Nations and the principles of international law, and they are a threat to Syria's security, stability, and they threaten peace and security in the region as a whole. The Arab group stresses the need for Israel to comply fully with the 1974 disengagement agreement. We demand an end to Israel's repeated violations, and we call for an immediate and unconditional withdrawal from the Syrian territories into which Israel has recently advanced, as well as from the occupied Syrian Golan. Fifth, the challenges facing our region impose upon the international community a shared responsibility, to promote a culture of dialogue, cooperation, and confidence building. Experience has demonstrated that lasting peace is not achieved through force, rather through genuine political will, a commitment to diplomacy and mediation, and respect for international law. In closing, the Arab group renews its commitment to work with the United Nations and all international and regional partners to strengthen international peace and security, to support political solutions to conflicts, and to build a Middle East that enjoys security, stability, development, and prosperity. I thank you, Mr. President.
Gracias.
I thank the representative of Saudi Arabia. We have a number of speakers left to hear. With the indulgence of members of the Council, I will now suspend this meeting until 3 p.m. this afternoon. The meeting is suspended, and we resume our work at 3 p.m.